It is Monday, July 29th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. Welcome to anyone who's still hanging around live. We had some technical issues here, but my name is Greg McMillan, and this is episode 125, I believe. And we're going to talk about a couple of images that listeners have submitted for us to talk about. Plus, we're going to go through some listener feedback. So, with no further ado, I will bring in my esteemed co-host, Mr. Dave Podner. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Greg. So, you know what? Things happen. Life happens. We're here.
Yep.
And if you're listening on the audio, you don't know anything that happened.
No, you just missed 13 minutes of podcast bliss.
Tech support.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, we are going to... what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some stuff that we should have talked about last show, but I forgot, or maybe it was a show before. I don't even remember.
We also had a guest.
We had a guest last time too. Yeah, Dale Lotherington was on.
Yeah, and Dale, we want to make sure Dale has much time as possible.
Yeah,
especially some of the things Dale was talking about was so deep in terms of his editing that he did.
Yeah.
It was manually taking all those shots and stacking them and putting them and using different shots for the foreground and that and depositing them together where, we didn't want to cut into its time either.
Yep, that's right. So if you missed that, folks, go back and check it out. You can see the images in the podcast player, or you can just check out the YouTube video where Dale talks about how he does some of his astrophotography and hyperlapses. So it was some pretty good stuff. Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of pictures that were submitted to some posts where we asked for people if they wanted us to talk about their images. Put them in a comment, and we'll pick one to talk about. So the first one it was the only comment because I posted it in the wrong stupid spot. I posted it on the Facebook page, not the group. And then the second one, it's from the group, but we only had 2 submissions. So we picked one. Actually, Dave picked it, and I agreed with it. So we're not going to do this anymore unless we get a bunch of people asking us to do it. If you want your images talked about on the show, let us know. We're happy to do it. And but for now, we've got 2 to go through, and both from fellows named Paul. So the first one is Paul Stevenson.
Greg, before we start on that, and correct me if this is just something that kind of popped in my head, as we tend to do during the podcast.
Oh, of course.
If you have taken a photo and you've maybe discovered a new app or a new technique or just a photo that, you want us to talk about, tag me and Greg in the comments. That way we'll be notified. No guarantee we're going to talk about it, of course, depending on what's happening that day. If you found the greatest photo in the world, but it's the week of the new iPhone, time.
Yeah.
But it's probably the best way if there is something that you came across that you want to highlight. And let's say, a lot of people don't want to come on. They don't have the time. We do it 9 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern U.S. time on Mondays. So that may not work for you, which we understand. You could be in another time zone where it's the middle of the night, first thing in the morning. Maybe you're at work already. Maybe you work, you have family, you have stuff going on. We understand.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's something that you want us to talk about, like I said, the easiest thing is make sure you tag our names. Because if you only put, hey, Dave and Greg, or hey, Greg and Dave, without doing the official tag, there's a chance we'll miss it.
Yeah.
Because
that's right.
Facebook stinks.
Yeah.
when it comes to when it comes to discoverability, it does a horrible job at it. So tagging us is the safest thing to do. Then we get notified directly.
Yeah. Yep. That's some pretty good advice. So the first image we're going to look at is, and I'm hoping this works as soon as I hit this button right here. Yes. It's one by Paul
Got a little
Stapleton, and
whiplash by throwing off on the side screen.
yeah. And you and I have both taken a picture of this same type of flower recently. And because I've seen yours on social, and then I think we actually talked about it on our recent photos a couple of shows ago. Where, and so Paul has done it, and this is let's see here now if I could find it. There we go. So he shot it with an iPhone 14 Pro, raw with Lightroom Mobile, sorry, and Snapseed where he did the edit. So I'm not sure what he did exactly, but it looks to me like he selected the subject basically and just gave it a black background and then put the frame around it, which is, I think it works pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it, Dave?
No, I think this is great. I think that it's nice that it's for an image like this with so much symmetry in the central part, unless you can get that exact in the middle that really highlights the symmetry or pattern, having it a little offset a great thing, especially with the black empty space there on the left.
Yeah.
I like the frame. I know that for those of us who have been taking iPhone photos for a while, everyone went frame crazy when Instagram hit around 15 years ago. Literally 15 years ago. And everyone just put frames on everything when you don't need frames on everything. But I think it works here, especially since the flower, like I said, you can see how the flower continues on. Yeah. But the frame kind of gives it a nice box. And I'm pretty sure that's just knowing Snapseed, that's probably where you got the frame from. Yeah. It's kind of like a matte frame. You can almost see this. All you need to do is print this out with the black frame and the white and the background. You could print this out, put it in a physical frame, and then you're good to go for showing it.
Yeah. And I knew what kind of flower this was, but I forget. I'm not a botanist by any means, but it's pretty cool. I would think it was maybe taken in bright light because the petals tend to fade to white near the tips. Either that, or it's it's getting a little aged. But yeah, no, it's really cool. The composition is, like you say, it's really cool. Yeah. Being offset like that, and the framing just works great in it. So yeah, I mean, it's a great image, and well done, Paul. And I just wish more people would want to submit them, because it gives us a chance to see other pictures besides our own. So I'm
showing purple cone flower.
Oh, okay, right. Purple cone flower. Yeah, that'll be it. That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is one advantage, I would say, of Google Photos over the iPhone Photos app so far. We don't know about the AI technology they're going to put in the Photos app, but with Google Photos, if you do have it in there, they do have Google Lens built in.
Yeah.
Where it will scan and basically do a reverse image search on the web.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll pull up the other one. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. So what was it that you liked about this one?
I like,
and I should say this is Paul McLaughlin's image.
Right. And this was taken with a particular app he mentioned.
Oh yes.
When you asked him about it.
It was using iPhone 15 Pro Max, using the Fjorden app and the grip, and edited in Darkroom. So Darkroom has a bunch of like presets and whatnot. So this looks to me like it's one of the film presets of that type of thing. But yeah,
and in the pastel colors, where there's a pink kind of hue to the whole thing, not only in the clouds but in the brick on the left, and the road itself has a light pink shade to it.
Yeah.
And the way the road and admittedly they're horrible to drive on, but roads that have curves on them and have dimensions are much more picturesque than just grids at eye level.
Yeah. It looks like an old place, wherever this is. So giving it that aged film look really works with it. I think it really really does it justice. It doesn't look like there's much in here, pertaining to modern times at all. Like it looks like there's maybe a hydro pole or something there, or maybe it's a light pole. But it looks like maybe a sign down near the middle, just as the road fades into the image there. But yeah, it's a compositionally I like it. It's framed well between the shade at the bottom and the trees up on the side. Yeah, it looks cool.
It almost, you could almost see this as an album cover.
Yeah. From the 70s.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Like a 50-year-old album cover where, almost either like a singer-songwriter type or, something like that. I could definitely, it just has that feel to it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what threw me to it. Was it had it wasn't necessarily the composition that got to me. It was just kind of an immediate feel looking at it.
Yeah, the nostalgia.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So thank you, Paul and Paul, for submitting those. And like I say, if this generates enough interest from other people who want to have their images shown on the podcast and have us talk about them, sometimes we don't have a whole lot to say, but sometimes we could have a lot to say about them. But I mean, it's always nice to showcase what the listeners are doing. You could see it in the Facebook group, of course, and whatnot, but sometimes it's nice to get a little subtle critique on it and see what it's all about.
And the thing is, we are, even if you want us to give a critical critique, which is always good to hear. It's always good to hear if something is maybe can get improvement. We will always, of course, be as professional. We will, try to uplift and not tear down. That's what, after all, we're here as a community, because I don't want to say no one here is a professional photographer, but I know I'm not. Greg, if you will, is a professional author. Self-published book. Buy his book. See the link in the Facebook group. But neither of us are paid or can make a living off of our photography.
Right. Yeah. We both have jobs and all that stuff. Yeah. So it's always fun to see what people are shooting. So now we're going to go to some listener feedback / comments, I guess you could say. And I'm taking these from the last 2 episodes that we did, where people commented on the YouTube videos, whether it was the live stream or the podcast version that's on YouTube. And actually the first one came from episode 124 with Dale Lotherington. It was on the not on the live video, but on the one that gets posted as a podcast. So it's just the picture of the logo, and you can listen to it on YouTube. So Caden Soley wanted to know what was the camera app that Dale used to on his iPhone to capture the astro pictures. So like Dale uses a few different things, like depending on what he's doing. If he's doing star trails, he'll use even longer. But for the astro stuff, like the straight up astro pictures of like the Milky Way or whatever, he's just using the native Apple camera. And what he'll do is he'll take a lot of them and stack them with an app called Sequator on the PC, on the Windows computer. And what that does is it aligns the Milky Way, and it gives you better detail in the Milky Way. And then he'll add in the foreground or whatever in what do you say? I think it was Photoshop. And that's how he makes this composite image. A lot of it is composite images, and that's basically what it is. So you could do a really nice astro picture with just the native camera app in the iPhone. And like I say, it depends on what you're doing. Depends on what app you're going to use.
And also it does help to do editing, especially if you're in a border area with I keep on forgetting, if you have a high border number, meaning a lot of light pollution, you're going to have to do editing.
Oh yeah.
There's no getting around that. I mean, like the photo, and we're going to be talking, here's the tease, we're going to be talking about this later. The photo you took of the Milky Way was mind-blowing. There's no way I could do that where I'm located because of my light pollution.
Yeah. And I have the luxury of just getting out of town too.
Yeah. But I would say unless, and we don't want this to happen, major power outage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because that happened in New York City around 20 some years ago. In the early 2000s, there was a major power outage, and people in New York, were concerned. And this is back, before we all got rid of our landlines, so you could still make phone calls without power. And they were wondering what this giant gas cloud in the air was. And it was the Milky Way.
Yeah.
And people who grew up inside of a city like that, I should say this, I should have seen it being at Boy Scout camp multiple years in my youth. I just don't remember looking up and seeing it. But we were out in the middle of nowhere. We were in the real, in the boonies. So we should have, looking up, you should have been able to see the Milky Way if it came up at the right time.
Yeah. It's something that, I work with a guy who has never seen the Milky Way with his naked eye. So, but he grew up in Toronto, and he's only been up here for 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it is. Just hasn't had the opportunity, I guess, to get out and see it. He'd never seen the Aurora Borealis until we had that epic night back in May, where you could see it with the naked eye. So that big power outage, Dave, was that not the whole East Coast? Because there was a time it was 1 year. I think it was.
No, it wasn't that one. No, okay. No, it wasn't when the hydro went out. That was due to solar storms.
Oh, okay.
Because this was after 9/11.
Oh, okay.
That was part of the panic. It was only like 2002, 2003.
Right.
And I think it was 2002. So it was not even a year since 9/11. And a lot of New York lost power. And of course, the first thing popped people's head was, it's a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
And then they look up and they see this milky, cloudy looking thing that stretches across the sky. And they think, is that poison gas?
Yeah.
That's just the mindset of people who literally were attacked just a year earlier was, huh?
Yeah. But, Gary says great Milky Way.
That's understandable.
Yeah. Gary says great Milky Way on Vancouver Island. Northern Lights forecast for next week. I think the Northern Lights were forecast for here for tonight, but
no.
We had clouds move in and it's supposed to rain, so I'm not even going to go outside and look. So that was a question that Caden had about Dale's workflow. Going back to episode 123, which was about why we photograph, there was some there was some pretty good comments here. So this first one's a bit of a long one. It's from Dwight Broman. Greg and Dave, the world around us is so we talked about, why we like to take pictures in that episode. And, so this was one of the comments. The world around us is wonderful. Before my interest in photography, I would walk right by just about everything. Now I seem to see every flower. I am constantly composing images in my mind as I see more around me in my environment. And I'd say that the same holds true for me. And imagine it probably holds true for you, Dave, as well. Like if you're out and on a run, how many times do you stop and take a picture? Like every time, it seems. Yeah. So for this, I'm thankful for this hobby. It has forced me to slow down and take notice. So why? So this is why Dwight Broman takes pictures. He says, I like to capture memories and the best composition possible. But this is the challenge for me. I feel that if I can capture the photo properly, then I can communicate properly and extend to others what I see. Then the art of this hobby is to edit the capture, to recreate the scene as I remember it. Of course, unless I am doing an artistic version, which is another path. So that he does like digital artwork, so that's what he's talking about there. But, it's nice to be able to portray what you see, your vision of what you see to the rest of the world. And that's, I kind of agree with that. That's kind of what I like to do too. Because, it's just everybody that does this has this creative thing inside them that just has to come out. And of course, everybody has a different way of showing it. So, with you, Dave, you've got a very creative workflow as well. And little spoiler alert, we're going to see a little bit of that coming up too. So I don't think there's anything that Dwight says that we could actually disagree with by any means.
Oh, no. The only thing I would expand on, not disagree, but expand on is I don't want to say there's two opposing thoughts because there's different ways to photograph, but there's I'm taking a photo and I'm doing my editing to show what it looks like. So if you stood next to me and this is what we're seeing, literally a straight photograph. And then you have I see something and I'm trying to get forth the emotion or the picture in my mind. That's the creative editing part, because there's the image that when I look at something, there's what my eyes capture and, the straight image. And then there's I see that color here and I see this here. So I would really love to highlight this and highlight this out here and do something a little more unique here and add a little thing here type thing. And that's where two people taking photo of the exact same image side by side with the exact same equipment, depending on what they're trying to communicate, will give you two different images. And that to me is some of the exciting part with photography. It isn't just, there's no right or wrong. There's no, this is what you see, this isn't what you see. The hard part is sometimes, and this is something I occasionally have issues with, keeping your mind open enough to realize alternative perspectives on an image. Yeah.
Photography and art in general is just so subjective. Everybody has their own interpretation of it and wants to portray it their own way and all that stuff. So, that's photography for sure. Karen O'Hara says, photography has opened my eyes to the world around me. It encourages me to get out into nature and open green spaces. I also enjoy visiting our busy capital city, London. So she's in the UK, and going to the many historical places and parks that we are blessed with. Without the joy that photography brings me, I wouldn't I wouldn't see what was on my doorstep. When I'm out taking photos, I get lost in the process and in my own little world. I love it. And that is so true. And Will Newcomb, he agrees with all this. Photography helps him see the beautiful creation around him. Again, I can't disagree with it, with whatever Karen says here, because I just like to go to parks and things like that, and me. As soon as I see a flower, I got to take a picture of that. But there's so many different things that are worth capturing, and what I wouldn't give to go to a place like London and see the historical buildings and the architecture and all that stuff. We have some of that stuff here, not in the town where I live. I'd have to go to Toronto or Montreal to see that stuff. But it's still not nearly as old as what you get over in Europe. That's for sure.
Oh, no. I mean, same thing for the U.S. I mean, especially in Pittsburgh, where we have a building that was the Fort Pitt. God, it just popped my head out. Basically the guardhouse from the old Fort Pitt that was put up colonial times. But that's, the blockhouse. I'm sorry, Fort Pitt blockhouse. But the fort was taken down in the early 1800s and used for building materials, So there are some buildings in Pittsburgh which can date back to the mid 1800s, late 1800s. Most of downtown would be early 1900s type thing, with a lot of skyscrapers were built, but nothing you could say, oh, this was, erected 500, 600 years ago. Literally you could say this building was erected before Europeans knew there was an Americas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gary in the chat room here says he was a police officer specializing in crime scene investigation photography, and it gave him cumulative PTSD. I am not surprised. I've seen some forensic photography from our local policeman in a presentation that they did, and wow, like, it's, how do you do that every day? I don't know. The camera is how he restores the balance in his life. My photography is my and his connection to the creator and visual meditation. He adds in the next one here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I find photography to be very therapeutic. Sometimes if I have a rough week at work, say, my next day off, the first day off that I get, if the weather's decent, I just want to go someplace like a river or something like that, and just start taking pictures and get lost in the middle of it all and just escape everything around me, and just spend time in the moment and try to make some really cool pictures. And I did that actually about a month ago when I was I went down to this river, and I just spent like an hour and a half there by myself. There was nobody else around, and it was so nice to just sit there and listen to the sound of the river and the birds in the forest, whatever. It was just a great way to escape it all, I guess you could say. And Will says, Gary, thank you for your uncomfortable work. Bless you and with your new photography. Yeah, it's definitely a hard line of work to do, even though you may love photography, but that type of photography would be hard to do, for sure. So Karen, she's got her definitely got her things that she loves about it, just like we all do. Now, the next one is from Mr. Will Newcomb, who's right here in the chat. So time to put you on the spot here, Will. And by the way, Will is suffering from, 36 degree Celsius and sunny in Shanghai or Shangsta. Or is that Shangsta or Shanghai? I'm not sure. Shangsha. It's in China anyway. And it's hotter than it is here. But anyway, Will said, so why do I photograph? Having just spent 4 weeks in the UK, I wanted to preserve some memories and to share them with family and friends. A nice surprise with, I think the images are better than they used to be. So, yeah, I think change is constant, and our ability to get better and better at photography is probably constant change. So I'm not surprised that you're getting better, Will. Some of the stuff that you're posting is fantastic, and the memories. That's the nice thing. Another nice thing about photography is the being able to save the memories. And Dave, you do live photos quite a bit. That's a great way to save a memory. There's just so many different ways to keep these memories alive. Live photos is one. Make a slideshow, put them in albums, print your photos. That's another way to keep them alive. And then Will says, as far as editing, he says, I rarely go out when the light is best, so most of my images look rather flat. But editing can help create a feeling of depth with selective editing. And yeah, that's true. Yeah. You can, well, with the iPhone 15 Pro, and I think it was with the 15 as well, not just the Pro, you can take a photo and it'll retain depth data, even though you weren't using portrait mode in a lot of cases. Doesn't do it every time, but it does it in a lot of cases. Right. Have you played around with Ruths like that, Dave? With the 15 Pro Max? A little, because I know it's best when there is a subject like a person or an animal where it uses the built-in machine learning. Yeah.
On the chip. That's why it's only on the 15 Pros. I don't think it's on the it may be on the non-pros. I'm not sure, but
maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure which,
because I know it is chip relevant, so that's why I'm thinking it's not on the 14. So that's why I'm thinking the pros, because that has a better chip than the non-pro 15s. But yeah, it'll actually notice it and give you, it can actually do portrait mode even if you don't select it ahead of time.
Yeah. So,
but it has to be really like obvious. It can be portrait mode.
Yeah, for sure. So, that's just one way to edit. I mean, we did a whole show on editing and whatnot, and selective editing. There's a lot of good apps that are that good at that. Lightroom Mobile is probably one of the best, but you got Photomator, you got Pixelmator. There's a bunch of them that can do it. I would love to see it come into Darkroom. Darkroom has, you could select a foreground or a background, with a mask, but I don't think there's much as far as selective editing like that. But who knows? I mean, they're always working on it, so maybe it'll come to them at some point. But so those are some of the comments that we had on some of the recent episodes here, and again, we love to hear this stuff. It's the summertime, so I'm not going to lie, I didn't really have a lot of time to think about what to do for tonight's show, and Dave, you sent me a text yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, and today, any ideas for Monday? This is how we roll, folks. This is how we roll. And I thought, you know what? I remember reading some of these comments, so I thought, let's talk about this on the show, and maybe it'll
that's one of the reasons we do it live on YouTube, in case anyone does have something they want to post live.
Yeah.
And when you post it after the fact on the YouTube channel, you can make comments, or if you want to make comments when you post the link to the Facebook group, add a comment there if you hear something, or reach out to us some way. I mean, we're both on social media, we're findable, and we love to converse with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, well, I guess we will move on to our recent photos.
Okay.
So I'll let you get that ready there.
Okay.
Okay, so this first one is one of mine. And this is a very, very rare selfie. As you can tell, that's me on the left, of course. um, and this was at work, and this, so I had these red shirts, and on the back it says, first aid or whatever. Because I used to be certified for first aid, and I gave this guy one because he was certified for first aid and he didn't have any. So it's just so that if somebody gets hurt, they know who to run to when you get, if you want to get some help. And this guy here, believe it or not, is the son of R2D2. The guy that was in the R2D2 droid in Star Wars, the first three movies, the original three movies, was this guy's
Kenny
dad.
Baker, right?
Kenny Baker. And so this guy, his name is Shane. Kenny Baker is his dad, or was his dad. He's gone now, but and if you look at pictures of Kenny Baker, you'll see a resemblance. So there was a story in a British publication about how when Kenny Baker passed, Shane didn't know Kenny. Like at a very young age, Kenny and Shane's mother split, and she moved over here, so he never really got to know him. And then when Kenny passed, I think he wanted to go and kind of reunite with, some of his long lost family or something like that. So, so we affectionately call him R2 all the time. That's his nickname at work. But I was looking for some pictures to put in for tonight, and I really didn't have a big selection because I took a lot of pictures, but a lot of them were of the same thing. So I didn't have a big variety of subject matter. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out on the limb here and just throw one up of Shane and I, and he's probably going to shoot me for it. But I don't think he listens to the show. He's not into photography, so I don't suspect he'll even know that it was there. But I won't include this in the Facebook post because I don't have his permission to do that. But I mean, just to put it on the podcast app, that's the only place where it'll be really visible, and it's going to be pretty small. And then of course it's on this video here, but it's not, we don't go viral or anything. So, but it's pretty cool to say that I work with a guy who his dad was R2D2. But other than that, go ahead.
I just looked up because I was just wondering how tall Kenny Baker was.
Yeah, he wasn't very tall.
3'8".
Yeah, I was going to say he was under 4 feet.
Yeah.
Now this guy here, he's obviously, as you can see, he's just about as tall as me. So, but his mother she was not a dwarf, but right. You could see a bit of dwarfism in Shane, and he'll tell you that too. But he's he's just an average sized guy. Fun to be around, fun to work with, pretty good guy. Alrighty, so the second one is one of yours. This is pretty cool.
Oh, thanks. This is actually when you were talking about shots I take out on a run. This is a shot taken out on a run. This is not too far away from my house, and I'm assuming that the house, because it's a house, it looks like an old barn house with like a separate kind of large garage and this really large field with an old fence in front of it. So I'm thinking it's one of the, when the area was first kind of set up and the roads were first done, that was like one of the early houses.
Oh, wow.
And the road kind of goes right up, this is public road that kind of goes back to where he is. And there's an old metal fence right in front of, I don't even call it a yard. because I think it probably could be used for farming.
Oh, okay.
The size of it.
Yeah.
And I actually took 2 shots. I took the shot focusing primarily on the fence, and especially the part where one of the arrowheads broke off, and you can see the tree in the background's framed by what's left. And I took one where the tree itself was sharp, and the fence was a little more blurry. And it didn't look bad, but it didn't look as good as this one.
Yeah.
So this was, and like I said, this is during a run. It's near the end of a road. It's a dead end road, so you kind of have to stop, turn around, and come back. So when you're slowing down to stop, to turn around and come back, catching your breath, sweating, that kind of thing, it gives you time to look around and see what's around you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, you're not worried about looking out for traffic or, you know, feeling whatever, like, oh, is my ankle okay? Is my leg okay? Am I breathing? And all that other fun stuff. But you're like, okay. And I can look around. Like, I love the weathered look on the metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being able to edit it. Yes. Yeah. Gary, it does give you that old kind of protecting the castle look.
Yeah, because just for the audio listeners, Gary put a comment here. Says, reminds me of medieval wall protecting the castle. Timeless subject.
So yeah, and I just like the fact that, and this may be over the kind of over processing, if you will, but being able to use like Lightroom Mobile to really emphasize the using the dehaze and the clarity and the sharpness, kind of overemphasize the pattern of the weathering on the metal itself.
Yeah.
Where you have the different colors involved and you have the little bumps of the actual rust that's happening right now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, you can see the texture. You can see. Well, I mean, this is one shot that actually might work in stick season too, because it'll really give you that moody feel to it. You know, if with just the right type of editing, whether it's you know, sepia or whatever kind of treatment you want to give it, it has the potential of you know, portraying many different moods depending on, you know, what time of day it was. But I like the light here. It looks like a nice warm light. I'm going to guess it's probably early evening. Or is it morning?
I'm actually just double checking here. This was evening. Yeah. This was evening. Yeah. This was a little before 8:00 p.m.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, the warm light really does do it justice. Mm-hmm. And like Gary said in the chat, great texture. It does. It has some really nice texture to it. And you know, it just oozes age to it. So far, 2 of your images are the one that you've selected from Paul McLaughlin, and this one have, you know, something to do with aging and it, kind of a bit of a theme going here for your taste in photos. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So the next one, we'll get that one queued up.
Okay. And that should be up for you here.
Yep. Yeah. So this one, you know me, macro flowers. I gotta stop and shoot them. Yeah, we were just down at the local arena. Has a garden out behind it, between the building and the bay, the water. That is looked after by a garden club in town here, and they have all these different daylilies and just all these different kinds of flowers. So I love going down there. You know, when we walk the dogs, I like to take them through this little garden area. And of course, I could get lost in here for an hour easily. So I had the reflex long range macro, and this is cropped a little bit, you know, so there was actually I'd say it was probably cropped about 50% in, because I shot it in 48 megapixel. So that gave me lots of room to crop down, just to show the stamen on the flower, and of course I always try to get sharp focus on those, on the stamen, like the tips there. Not even worried about anything else. Anything else that could be in sharp focus is a bonus, but I always like to get those things in sharp focus. And actually, not a lot of other editing done. Maybe a little bit of I don't know, saturation or contrast or something like that added to it, but not too much else done to it. So basically just a yellow daylily.
Yeah, and like you said, seeing the pollen right there, just it's really just like we were talking about earlier, taking the time to take a moment to see exactly what's going on.
Yeah,
taking that time just to breathe.
Yeah, for sure.
And just to get a feel for what's happening.
Yeah. So the next one, and I think this is going to have something to do with what we were talking about with, your creative editing.
Yes. This is one of the ones that I put it through, I think, around 5 different apps to make it look this way.
That's crazy.
And it's editing on top of editing on top of editing. So I'm actually looking back. I think this was I thought I may have taken this at the same time I took the other one. But I did not. So I'm actually, oh, there we go. Okay. Let me see here. No, this was taken again, 7:00 at night. Very similar location, I would say. Very similar. So this is close to where I took the other one. This was actually just looking kind of west. So the sun was setting, and you can see the golden glow there, kind of in the middle, just to the right. That's actually where the sun was behind clouds. So you can, it's kind of, the way it was set up was there was trees to the left, lower foliage in the middle, and not as high trees, but trees on the right hand side. So it kind of had a U-shape opening for the sky. And when I looked at the photo, it just didn't pop like I remember seeing it pop. And so I threw it through, well, I can actually go through it here. One was Art Card. I did the R&I Films editor.
Oh, yeah.
And then finally I did it in Artwork. No, I'm sorry. No, it's Lookup Artwork, because I do have an app now. Visionist, and a little bit of Snapseed for the border around it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And actually, I put this through 2 different borders. So I think one was Snapseed and one was Camera Plus. Snapseed to get kind of, if you look at the inner border, that kind of looks like a light leak or torn paper. That's one border. And then I threw through, that was, I believe, that was a Snapseed border, and then Camera Plus for some additional, and putting the hard white and black border around it.
Yeah. Well, so I got to throw this out there. If this is how you remember seeing it, you were on something pretty wild.
Well, I will say this.
I'm kidding, of course.
I will say that. No. But, and I'll say this. There is a difference, and it's going to sound weird, when you're actively doing something and physically exerting yourself. Your mind thinks differently than just sitting there.
Yeah.
There are times when I'm in the middle of a run and it's hot out and I'm exerting myself. So it does, affect blood flow. It does affect how your brain works. After all, my brain at that point is mainly thinking, like I said, I run on public roads. My main thing is there a car behind me? Is there a dog somewhere? Don't trip over that and fall in the cement, which I've done a couple times. So your mind's doing multiple things at once, and you look over, you see the sunset, and you just get this mental image in your mind. And again, this is one time where it's partially a matter of I didn't I like I kind of like the photo the way it turned out, but I didn't it didn't match up to what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And when that happens, even if I try to put it in Lightroom Mobile and do some editing, and occasionally I'll try using the curves, even though I'm not great at it. I try to do various edits and try to do like little tweaks, and it's like, I don't want to say throw it away. It's not like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's good. Sometimes we get those images where you take the photo, you're like, I thought it would turn out better. It wasn't a great photo. It just didn't turn out the way I wanted. It happens. That's one
Yeah.
of the joys of digital photography. It isn't like, oh, and I just wasted 2 weeks of my life waiting the film to come back and cost me all this money to have it printed out just to find out it wasn't a good shot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes I go and like you said about, I don't want to say therapy per se, but just having the um it's kind of therapy for the editing, you know. So sometimes after a run, and it'll be like, okay, I just need to relax a little bit, or you have a hard day or something's going on. I'll just start editing and throwing stuff and stacking different apps together and try this and try that. And just like some people who paint or,
Mm-hmm.
um, do work with clay, different sculptures, you know, it's just a way of therapy because I'm in a way, I'm using my hands.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
physically, like painting, but I am using my hands to manipulate the screen.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just a way, it's just a meditation. It's just a way to relax and, you know, just have everything just kind of wash over you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a very creative edit, very colorful. It looks like an oil painting. I don't know my artists very well at all to say who this could look like, but like as far as a painter goes, but it's you can still kind of tell what it is. Like it's not that abstract, but it does have an element of abstract to it, and
Mhm.
um, it's just really cool. And every time you put one of these out here, I keep thinking to myself, okay, I got to sit down and I got to play with this stuff because I have, pretty much all these apps that you mentioned, I think. And I just have to play around with them and see what I can do. And I end up forgetting, or you
Yeah.
just get too busy doing something else. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool, really well done. This could be like a book cover for some kind of
Mhm.
you know um, medieval mystery novel or something. It's really cool. Um, all right, so
Okay.
we'll go to the next one. Yeah, Gary says Monet. Yeah, that's probably the painter that I'm trying to think of. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and just while you're looking for that, I'll touch back on a comment uh, that Gary said about my yellow flower. He likes the sharpness fading to out of focus. Your eye goes right to the stamen. Simpler the image, the more it beckons the viewer back. So, yeah, thanks, Gary. That's pretty much how it seems to roll with those types of macro photos. There's always one little sharp thing. It could be on different parts of the image, but that focal plane is there somewhere, and you just always seem to kind of go around and wind up back there again. So, the next one here, this is the Astro one you were alluding to earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and this was last night. So, in the evening, I noticed that there wasn't a cloud in the sky. So I thought, okay, this is my opportunity to get out and get the Milky Way. As you know, I tried a few weeks ago, and we had a picture that I took with the Milky Way was supposed to be right across just above the horizon, horizontally at that time in that place, but and I got the road in the picture, but this one here I was able to actually get the actual Milky Way. So this was about 10 minutes outside of town. So I live in a small enough town that it doesn't take long to get out into fairly good total darkness. But that glow you see in the lower part of the frame on the horizon, that is most likely from Toronto, which is like two and a half hour drive away. But there's enough light pollution from that city that it will glow in the lower part of the horizon. Far. Yeah. In the lower right-hand corner, just to the left of the biggest tree, you can see a little bit of glow there, and that is actually a little town that was about probably about 2 kilometers away down the road. So there were, so I mean, but that little town that's not causing that big glow in the sky by any means,
right?
But basically, how do you shoot astro on an iPhone? Put it on a tripod, tap on a star to focus, set it night mode for 30 seconds in Pro Raw, and take the shot. Most of the magic is in the editing when it comes to these types of photos. So this one here, I actually did it on the Mac in Affinity Photo, trying to utilize some of Shane's techniques that he uses in Lightroom Mobile. I thought I would just try it and see how it worked, and it didn't work too bad. I tried to neutralize that, like the greenish cast that it has. It was a lot worse in the original, mind you. But but I think I was able to get the detail out of the cluster, pretty much the way I wanted to. I think I could probably work with this a little more and maybe improve on it, but I was pretty happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, and you eventually you do you get to a point of diminishing returns.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary, for joining us for now. Sorry to see you have to go, but and thanks for your comments on this image too. But yeah, the iPhone 15 Pro Max really does a good job of getting more stars. Like the first astro shot I ever took was with the 12 Pro Max, and you couldn't see nearly as many stars as you can with the 15 Pro Max. So I think a lot of it has to do with the pixel binning too, which didn't occur in the 12 Pro Max. So, and Will says that he hates me is just kidding, but because he doesn't have this kind of dark areas where he is, and it's a shame. But if you ever get a chance, Will, I'm sure you'll have a crack at it for sure. So that's my latest astro shot. And finally, we'll get to your last one.
Yep. There's going to be a theme for all mine. This was also taken while on a run. This was near the end of it. And it was a storefront that had these kind of a string of these kind of lights set up. And they were on because apparently they never turned them off, because I ran this would have been Sunday midday. Probably close to like 12:30 in the afternoon. So there's no reason to have the lights on.
Yeah.
Obviously, and they didn't have it on a timer or anything else. So then it was bright and sunny outside. And just looking up, I love the way you could see the light, the LED probably on the inside, but also all the cracks on the plastic.
Yeah.
That made that pattern, including, if you look on kind of the outside part, the rainbow pattern, because of the interference with the different lights. Not only the sun, but the other light there, and the reflections happening on the inside. And like I said, this is basically a macro shot. And just getting all those, kind of expecting it with all these cracks that it's going to just shatter any second.
Yeah, it sure looks like it. So where was this light again? Where was it hanging from?
Sure. It was a storefront.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Down by the boulevard, the one town over I was running in. They have these little storefronts along the main boulevard, and they just had these kind of lights you can get at a hardware store, just kind of decorative lights.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And the light apparently has been out for a while. You can see the weathering on the actual. I think it's plastic. I don't think it's glass. But on the plastic, bulb part, you can see where it's, being out in the weather, you're going from 90 degree, I'm going to go Fahrenheit here. Sorry, folks. 90-degree heat to single digits Fahrenheit within a period of a year. And you're leaving something just out here where it's covered with snow and a little bit of ice when we've had that, and rain and everything else. It's going to start to have these little micro cracks, but they were just barely noticeable with the naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get that, like I said, you get the macro, you zoom in and you're like, oh, that's
yeah. It's it's really cool that it has all these little cracks and stuff in it, and I don't know how it doesn't pop. I don't know how it hasn't broken.
Well, if you notice, a lot, they're not all connected.
Yeah, that's right.
They're not all connected, and I'm not sure how deep they are.
Oh yeah.
So there's the 3D aspect of, it's not going all the way through. So there's probably just enough material. Now, if someone clicked on it or ran in, these things are kind of above average height of a person. So no one's going to run into it.
Yeah.
But I think if someone ran into it with if they were carrying a pole, or if it was raining and they hit it with their umbrella, there would be an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, who knows? It could be some kind of plastic lining around it or something too that's holding it all together too.
For safety reasons. So I'm sure there's something.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. I'm going to guess you took that with the telephoto? And cropped, did you? Or
it is a little cropped. Let me look at the details here. Ultra wide.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like I said, it was macro. It was ultra wide. I did editing just in the app itself. So I didn't, it's still a live photo. So I didn't, So this was not put into Lightroom or Photomator. This is just in the built-in app itself. Built-in Photos app.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool.
Like I said, it was hanging, but it wasn't. It was a first story thing. So if I reached up with if I reached up, I could probably hit it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't that high, so I was able to hold the phone up. And this is an advantage of a live photo, because as you're doing a macro shot and you're trying to get in, and you're, especially for something above your head, it's really hard to steady the phone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm standing there underneath looking up, and the phone's gently moving. And so I took a photo, and I used a live photo to select another frame capture. Yeah. So it would be a little more centered than what the phone automatically did.
Yeah. Well, live photos saves the day again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I like the edit. It's the colors are nice and bright, and the phone does a good job of picking up the light up in the center of the bulb there, but yet still keeping the background and everything else, well exposed. So, and you can see the texture in the socket thing there, and then the little bit of a lens flare that it kind of adds to it. I think it's not the type of lens flare that kind of gets in the way, really, but rather, like I say, it adds to it. So,
well, and it's kind of it's a natural lens flare.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it really is, from the sun which was overhead, and getting that image that way versus, and nothing against people editing lens flares in, but there's sometimes just something that just doesn't, when you add lens flare, it just doesn't look as good sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't look as natural. Yeah. Well, another good set of recent pictures, and I think we promise you folks, next show we'll have something a little more compelling to talk about, other than just a lot of photos, and maybe we'll even have another guest. We might just have another guest on. I ain't gonna promise nothing yet, but I have someone in mind who's been wanting to come on, and now that we're back on YouTube, that's the way to have this person on, is live, or at least on video where you can see some stuff. So anyway, well, I guess we got ourselves a show, and I guess we'll see you all in the next one.
Yeah. Have a great one, everyone.
Basically, how do you shoot astro on an iPhone? Put it on a tripod, tap on a star to focus, set it night mode for 30 seconds in Pro RAW, and take the shot. The rest of the magic happens in editing. And this one,
I'm here.
Yeah, that's all right. I could cut your audio out on that one. But most of the magic is in the editing. And and there's
Daisy,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a new baby. That's why the microphone fell.
Ah, okay.